Hi, I'm Monty Coleman. In 1979, I put on a Washington Redskin uniform for the very first time. 16 years, 4 head coaches, 4 Super Bowls, and over 200 games later, and I'm still putting it on. You know, it took a lot of hard work for me to get here, and a lot of hard work for me to stay around this long, but it hasn't been without its rewards. When I decide to go fishing, I'll take a lot of great memories with me. We all know the Redskins are special, partly because the fans are so special. And now, thanks to Safeway, Kodak, and Coca-Cola, we can all relive the great moments and great people that helped make the Redskins such a passion for so many years. So sit back and enjoy the great moments in Washington Redskin history.
45 left! Move! 32! 34!
Up over the left tackle spot, breaks it across the 20 to the 30, he's gone.
Where's Ricky Sanders? Here he comes.
The history of the Washington Redskins goes back to 1932. When this team was born, the Boston Braves. Founder George Preston Marshall renamed his team the Redskins in 1933, and in 1937 moved his club to Washington. Marshall proudly introduced pro football's first marching band and first fight song, and in their inaugural season in the capital city, the Redskins won the NFL championship as Sammy Baugh threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, including 2 to Hall of Famer Wayne Milner in a 28-21 win over the Bears. Chicago overwhelmed Washington 73-0 in the 1940 championship game. But 2 years later, the Redskins would have revenge and another world title by beating the Bears 14-6. One of the big reasons for the Redskins' early fortunes was Marshall's signing of quarterback Sammy Baugh. Sling and Sammy proved easily able to tame the wild frontiers of pro football, and number 33 earned induction into the Hall of Fame for 16 outstanding seasons in Washington.
I think the first championship game I ever played in, my first year, I think it was the thing that meant the most to me, because I never thought I'd ever play in a championship game in the pro league. I'll just be honest with you. And I'll tell you, I never saw a bunch of boys that were cut up as much as everybody on both teams playing that ball game. That was a terrible field to have to play on, because every time you hit the ground, that frozen mud would just cut you, and you had little places bleeding all over you. It was a very poor field to play a football game on.
He had a charisma to attract fans. I remember in Philadelphia at Shibe Park that when we played, and Sammy Baugh was playing in those days, when we played the Redskins, that we turned down out on Lehigh Avenue in front of Shibe, we turned down 15,000 people at the gate, couldn't get in. He was an attraction.
Defending Sammy Baugh was almost an impossible situation. People that saw him play, I'm sure, will agree with me on that, because he threw the ball from a running position many times as he took the ball from center, short and long, in a hurry, or faking into the people, flaring out and going deep, and made the defense a very tough situation.
A boy was rushing me, and he was a good football player. That's what he's supposed to be doing, but he was hitting me with his fist, and as though he was hitting at the ball. He was coming down, and he was always catching me right in the face. And I didn't, at that time, we didn't have any mask on or anything, you know. I told him next time we'd call a pass that I told him not block him, just let him come. Well, I threw the ball and hit him right there on where that headgear went across his forehead, and I guess it shut off the blood or something. And anyway, he stood there a minute and just fell flat on his. I thought I'd killed him. It scared me more than did him. But it didn't help a bit because he still came just as hard next time as he did before.
Bringing Sammy Baugh, though 36 years old and with 15 seasons of pro competition behind him, gives no signs of nearing the end of his amazing career. Voted the greatest living quarterback of all time by the Associated Press poll, the venerable Sammy is ready for another full season. Every time he throws the football, completes a pass, gains a yard, scores a touchdown, Baugh sets a world record.
A lot of people, they think of Sammy Baugh as being a great passer because of his records, and probably still has some, but he also was one of the greatest defensive backs in the National Football League. I think he led the league in pass interceptions a couple of years. A pretty fair ball carrier, the greatest quick kicker that ever lived.
Everybody today, I think, the quarterbacks of today, they do nothing but emulate the throwing styles that Sammy Baugh started years and years ago. I think that Sammy Baugh was the greatest football player that ever played the game.
In 1955, against the Eagles, Washington was down 16-0. But Eddie LeBaron's touchdown pass to Vic Zanowitz set off a lightning-quick scoring spree. On the ensuing kickoff, the ball took a Redskins bounce toward the goal line, and Washington recovered it in the end zone for another 7 points. After an Eagles fumble, the Redskins moved in for their third score, and Zanowitz ran it in. The Redskins had scored 21 points in 137 seconds. 1962 saw the arrival of Bobby Mitchell to the Redskin ranks. Number 49 was a halfback for 4 years in Cleveland, where he played well, but was overshadowed by the man who would become a legend, Jim Brown. Mitchell's chance to step into the limelight came with a trade to the Redskins. Success did not come easy, though, as Mitchell's first season in Washington was plagued by a position change to wide receiver, along with the pressure of being the first black athlete to play for the Redskins.
I not only had to prove myself to the whites, but I had a real problem with the blacks. They expected me to be great every Sunday, which, as you know, you can't be. I didn't know anything about running patterns. I could catch the football, but that was it. Norm Sneed and I, in terms of timing up and patterns, were just horrible.
After struggling through a lackluster beginning, however, Mitchell went on to become a star in Washington.
Before the first quarter's over, the Redskins put their top offseason acquisition to work. Norm Sneed hurls the ball to Bobby Mitchell, who's behind everybody for an 81-yard TD play.
Mitchell finished 1962 with the league-leading 72 receptions and All-Pro honors. Excitement followed Bobby wherever he went, and the pressure was on for a lively game when he returned to Cleveland and met up with his old coach, Paul Brown.
They said he came into the dressing room that Tuesday or Wednesday, and he said, "We've got to get together. Bobby's running well. He's going to embarrass us." And, you know, it showed the most emotion they'd ever heard. He was pushing them to make sure that Bobby Mitchell didn't break away, didn't do anything. And he did a good job of that, because for 3 quarters I didn't touch the football. It was late in the game, fourth quarter. They were ahead of us. I wanted this ball so bad, stadium packed. I went to Bill McPeak and I said, Bill, you've got to get the ball in my hand some kind of way, even if you have to put me in the backfield. So he said, okay, I'll put you in the backfield. We'll try something.
Less than 2 minutes remain. Norm Snead goes back to pass. He hits Bobby Mitchell over the center, and watch the ex-Brownie turn it on for his old coach and teammates.
I'm running right at Paul Brown. It couldn't have been a better situation in life. This is the honest truth. I get to the sideline, and to this day when I see that film, I say to myself, God did that, because I couldn't have done that. It is the most amazing run that I'd ever seen anyone do, and I'm not saying it because I did it. I think whoever would have done it, I'd say the same thing. God did that, because no one makes a move like that.
A real sparkler and sweet revenge for Bobby Mitchell.
I didn't go back to Cleveland to beat Paul Brown. That was the first thing from my mind. I went back to Cleveland to beat the Cleveland Browns for one reason. I didn't want my buddies on that team to think that I was not a good football player.
For 11 NFL seasons, Bobby Mitchell more than proved his point. A versatile and talented athlete, Mitchell put all of his skills on the line every Sunday, making him one of the most inspiring performers ever to play the game. When it came to memorable moments in the 1960s, Bobby Mitchell was on the receiving end of one of the longest plays in Redskins history. A 99-yard touchdown pass from George Izzo that tied the club record set in 1939 by Frank Filchock and Andy Farkas. The record was again matched in 1968 when Sonny Jurgensen passed to Jerry Allen, who scampered the length of the field with little trouble. Jurgensen orchestrated an endless number of record-breaking plays and games for the Redskins, including one of the greatest comebacks in team history. Down 21-0 to Dallas, Jurgensen threw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns to bring his team back. Much to the delight of the hometown crowd, the arm of their future Hall of Famer led the Redskins to a 34-31 win. In 1966, Sonny again led Washington on an offensive assault as the Redskins racked up the points in the highest scoring game in NFL history. The Giants were out-hustled and outplayed as number 9 directed the Redskins to a 72-41 victory. One of Jurgensen's best years was 1967, when he set NFL and club records for most attempts, completions, and passing yards. Complementing him were wideouts Charley Taylor, Jerry Smith, and Bobby Mitchell, who finished 1st, 2nd, and 4th in receiving that same year, the highest ever finish by receivers on the same team. Taylor was one of the best ever at his position. But being a wide receiver was not what this legendary pass catcher originally had in mind.
I came into the league, I wanted to be the second Jim Brown, or close to Jim Brown, okay?
In his first 2 NFL seasons, Charley Taylor led the Redskins in rushing and made the Pro Bowl. But as a runner, he was simply too raw to make anyone forget Jim Brown.
He was an undisciplined running back. He used to run by his offensive guards. He'd be out in front of them when they were going around the ends. He would pass them up.
And the decision was made to not to harness that speed anymore, to put him outside where he could do his thing.
I'm very happy that they did that because it gave me somebody that I could depend on and go to. You knew that he was going to make the tough catch for you. He had such speed and quickness and strength and size.
Not too many people have been able to go from the running position to a receiver position. You hear a lot of people talking about it because if a guy catches the ball real well out of the backfield, oh, he should be outside as a receiver. It's not that easy. I can only think of 3 people who made that transition pretty well, and it's Lenny Moore, myself, and Charley Taylor.
Luckily, I had Bobby Mitchell, who was a great one to sort of pattern my thing after Bobby, and You know, Bobby was a smaller guy than me, but I used some of his stuff, and it worked.
I think Charley was the epitome of competition. Charley was a tremendous competitor. He never felt that the guy on the other side was better. The other guy on the other side, at best, was equal.
I knew when I was going to have a great day. I could just look at the defensive back's eyes, and I could tell if I had this guy in my pocket. I could tell that.
Charley had such great athletic ability. He was the best athlete on the field. You know, with the rule changes today, I don't know how many passes he might not have caught if you couldn't touch him. He was under the era where they were jamming people. You had to be physical to get into patterns.
They had what they call the axe or the clothesline and all that kind of stuff. And they did become a little physical during the course of a game. And the only way you could stay in the ball game or survive was you had to either be physical or you had to outrun everybody.
Taylor's ability to out-hustle and out-muscle opponents made him one of the toughest, as well as one of the most talented outside receivers to ever play the game. Despite his 6'3", 200 pounds plus frame, he was incredibly agile. He boasted an assortment of dazzling moves that left defenses in disarray. Defenders trying to halt Taylor by hurting him found that a cold slap in the face only made him more determined. Taylor's Houdini-like escapes from would-be tacklers were spectacular for fans, but to his teammates, these eye-grabbing getaways were merely routine.
That was very commonplace for Charley. One person, it was pretty hard for one person to bring him down because he was such a strong runner when he got to football. So for the players, although we were excited to see that, but we expected something like that from Charley. The fans probably said, "Ooh, what is this?" But we expected that from Charley.
He dropped passes, but he made great catches too. And I figured, and my wife told me this, that whenever he dropped a pass, she always knew that what the next play was going to be because I'd always come back to him because I had to get him back in the game. I couldn't let him lose his confidence.
By 1975, Taylor was on the verge of catching more passes than any receiver in NFL history. But while his record-setting reception had headline-making potential, it ended up as fine print.
1975, and I'm going for the record. Second game before the season's over, we play in Dallas. The TV is at my parents' house because I'm from Dallas, so the parents are sitting around the TV with the cameras on them. When this thing takes place, they're going to pan, I guess, right to my mom and dad. So I'm pumped for the game. So is Dallas, and Charlie Waters and Cliff Harris, those guys are getting pumped too to stop this thing. First quarter, I broke 2 ribs. So I don't want to come out of the game. The doctor bandaged me up pretty good. The whole game, I did not catch a pass. Hey, my whole family sitting there waiting, ready to break out with the champagne and, the joy and everything, but it didn't take place until the fourth quarter the next week. And then everybody left the stands. I couldn't believe that.
While making NFL history, Charley Taylor also made magic. He combined soft hands with a hard-nosed style of play. His versatile skills enabled him to produce 649 career receptions. And although Charley Taylor was never able to be like Jim Brown, few receivers will ever be able to emulate Charley Taylor. This Hall of Famer was blessed with a gift of grab, and he displayed it with pride.
I tell you what I'm proud of is that I was good enough to become an NFL player, first of all, and had the longevity to play the number of years I played, and then be in respect by your peers to induct you into the Hall of Fame. That's what it's all about. I mean, you can take it as far as you can take it, but once you reach the top, then that's it. And once they induct you into the Hall of Fame, then you say, well, hey, I must have been pretty good. So I look back and say, hey, I was a hell of a football player.
In 1969, the Redskins saw the arrival of a master architect, Vince Lombardi, who designed a game plan for success that had been missing in Washington. Despite possessing playmakers and record breakers, The Redskins had failed to post a winning season since 1955. Lombardi brought leadership and molded potential, and the Redskins met success head on. Washington's winning record was guaranteed Week 13 against the Saints. The defense kept New Orleans off balance from the very beginning, as the offense put 17 unanswered points on the board. When the Saints managed to climb within 3, a forced fumble and Redskins recovery cut New Orleans' comeback bid short. Washington finished the season 7-5-2, a fitting tribute to the coach who renewed an entire organization's dedication to victory. Following admirably in Lombardi's footsteps was George Allen. Allen put together some of the toughest teams of the 70s, as evidenced when Hall of Fame defensive back Ken Houston stopped Walt Garrison at the goal line to secure a win over Dallas. In a decade filled with accomplishments, Larry Brown, number 43, became the first Redskins back to rush for 1,000 yards in a season in 1970, and also was the first Redskin to capture the NFL's rushing title since Cliff Battles in 1937. With players like Brown, the Redskins won more games under Allen than in any other previous period in team history. The most significant of these victories was the 1972 NFC Championship game against Dallas. The Cowboys were the reigning Super Bowl champions, but Washington proved to be the better team. In what was becoming one of the most bitter rivalries in professional football, the Redskins trounced the Cowboys 26-3 to earn a trip to Super Bowl XVII. Washington faced the undefeated Miami Dolphins in a hard-fought defensive struggle, highlighted by Mike Bass's return of Garo Yepremian's misplayed field goal attempt for the Redskins' only score. Miami kept its perfect record intact with a 14-7 win, but the disheartening loss would by no means overshadow this team's achievements. Allen instilled a high school spirit in a group of grown men, and the Over the Hill Gang recorded 7 consecutive winning seasons, a franchise record. Each fall, a classic NFL rivalry is renewed between timeless and stately Washington, D.C. and aggressively modern Dallas, Texas. Since the early 70s, epic battles have been waged on the playing fields of RFK and Texas Stadium for supremacy of the NFC's Eastern Division. Trading hot licks and leaping catches in at least 2 games per season, the Cowboys and Redskins have fueled a feud in which each game is played with championship intensity.
Defense being asked to come up with some kind of a big play. I can't believe they're going to pass the ball. I can't either. 2nd and 8. They are. He's going to pass. He's in the end zone. He gets the ball batted, gets grabbed, sacked there. Safety. Grabbed in the end zone. The ball's still loose. Grabbed by the defense. What's the call? Might be a touchdown for the Redskins. Let's see. I think it is.
The rivalry began as a reflection of the personalities of 2 remarkably different head coaches. Cool and detached Tom Landry of the Cowboys, and outrageously enthusiastic George Allen of the Redskins. Allen was a finger-licking fanatic who used his skills as a master motivator to energize a group of bargain basement veterans he called the Over the Hill Gang. Tom Landry preferred his athletes young, and his team calculating and color coordinated. Today, both men are out of coaching, but they recently met once more in Dallas for a touch football game to benefit charity. This time, they would play for fun.
No, not horny.
This is the over-the-hill game.
But echoes of an intense past still remain.
What about the game plan for these Redskins, and in particular George Allen?
Well, I'm gonna check his signs over there. He's usually licking his his fingers. He probably got something going on over there.
Hey, 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 hey.
And the rivalry really started whenever George Allen came to Washington, D.C. The Redskins were hungry for a victory. They were hungry for any kind of successful season. They hadn't had a championship in 30 years.
What I tried to dwell on is that you're in the nation's capital. You're representing the nation. And I felt that way myself. We had a special mission.
He'd say Tex Ram put the Cowboys in there because he thought that the East Division was patsies, that the Redskins would never be anything, and that it was a setup by the league to make sure that the Cowboys always got to the playoffs.
Roger Staubach and company. Roger Staubach, Tom Landry, Tex Ram. Here we go.
But I remember George always saying that, if it was up to him to have the outcome of the game, he would like to fight Tom Landry on the 50-yard line of the game if that what it meant to win. I don't think he'd have won.
He made up all these goofy stories, got us to hate the Cowboys. The Cowboys, we were just the Redskins, you know what I mean? We meant nothing to them. But George got us so whipped up and fired up that, that we go out there and we'd be crazed by the time we stepped on the field. And then in response to our craziness, and they got crazy, so the rivalry developed. But it really came because George had a team which didn't have that much skill.
He built his Redskins up to where they were about to pop. And they were so emotionally high, buddy, that if you walked in that stadium, you better have your guns on because they were coming after you. I'm telling you, I might say I hated him, but he had his boys ready to play.
And so I used to say, if Roger Staubach wants to run, he's going to do it at his own risk, hoping he wouldn't run, you see.
And Staubach, as great as Staubach was a tremendous, tremendous competitor, but very much a Christian guy. Didn't say bad words, didn't curse. And George would try to unsettle him.
George, what do you want me to say about Roger? He said, well, why don't you say that we're going to break his neck if he runs? And then I'll say this, and then you say that.
And he has a big barker's voice. Geez, you can hear him through the stadium when he yells out something. He yells out, Roger! You can hear it at 250 yards away.
They truly are over the hill now. They're no match for you.
No, they're over the hill and so are we. We got two over the hill guys.
It was just a touch football game to be played for a good cause, but old habits die hard.
Can you imagine signing autographs before the ball game? That's what I call a distraction.
Despite the passage of years, the emotions and adrenaline of Dallas versus Washington came flooding back, mixing present with past.
Just remember this, 40 men together can't lose, okay? You were always tougher and smarter and together, see? And now, 15 men together can't lose. What do you say? Look at Riggins go, hey? Gee, he can still run.
And the Cowboys and Redskins could still mix it up. As some of the old animosities were still bubbling close to the surface.
Hey, you slap me in the face again, I'm going to slap you in the face.
Line up.
Arnold, don't do it anymore.
Just like the old days, the Redskins gave Roger Staubach a hard time. And just like the old days, the Cowboys had all the best athletes. For the record, Dallas won 22-0. But in the end, it was the memories that counted most. Memories of a team that was labeled loser, and the coach that tore that tag apart to create an enduring rivalry of might and men. After George Allen transformed Washington into a winner, Joe Gibbs turned the Redskins into champions. Brought in by Jack Kent Cooke, majority owner since 1974, Gibbs launched the Redskins into their greatest era of success. The dramatic conclusion of the 1982 season opener in Philadelphia, decided in overtime by Mark Mosley, was a sure sign of things to come.
Snap, hold is good. Kick is up long enough. It's good. Mark Mosley's toe has won it in overtime.
Mosley's field goal, however, would not be his only magic moment.
9 seconds to go. Theismann to hold from the 32, a 42-yard attempt. Plenty long enough. It's good! Mark Mosley has broken the National Football League record.
1982 was hog heaven for the Redskins, as their offensive line paved the way for the runner who would carry Washington on an uninterrupted path through the postseason. Number 44, John Riggins. Against Minnesota, Riggins rushed for 185 yards, a club playoff record, as the Redskins offense took charge. With a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter, Riggins secured his team's spot in the NFC Championship game.
Riggins gets the carry, coming near side, cuts back against the grain to the 30, to the 35, breaks it loose to the 40, he's to midfield, down to the 45 of the Vikings. Big run, John Riggins.
After Riggins took a well-deserved bow in front of the 54,000 who had cheered him on, both he and the fans turned their attention to their next opponent and their most hated foe.
Still goes. 50,000 people screaming, "We want Dallas." Time to pull up those socks, defense. Let's see what happens. Gets the snap. Back. Blitz is on. Fumble the football. Danny White looks like he's knocked out. Oh, he is out.
The Cowboys never stood a chance against a Redskins team with their sights set on victory, and the cheers of their fans reverberating throughout RFK.
Makes the door set. Hit the ball well. Set up a screen. Batted in the air. Picked off by Darryl Grant. Touchdown, Washington Redskins. I don't believe it. Oh, what a play. Dixon.
Washington's 31-17 win was one of the biggest in team history and propelled the Redskins into their second Super Bowl.
I am in a state of ecstasy. Never mind that nonsense about euphoria and so on. It is sheer, unadulterated, uncompromising ecstasy.
Washington had climbed to the top of the NFL, with only one more team to beat to be considered the best in pro football. The Redskins battled Miami point for point, and when they needed more power, they fired up their biggest engine.
Crank up that diesel. Let's go diesel.
For the fourth straight game in postseason play, Riggins rushed for over 100 yards, a Super Bowl record 166 to be exact, and Miami just couldn't keep up. Even when everyone in the stadium knew number 44 would carry the ball, Riggins proved unstoppable.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. Should come with John Riggins right up the middle.
Shot! Yellow 41! Yellow 41! Punch!
There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone. Touchdown, Washington Redskins.
That, gentlemen, may be the nail in the coffin. No question, it is the nail in the coffin.
With a 27-17 victory, the Redskins had earned the title World Champions. Few players ever aroused as wide a range of feelings as Joe Theismann did. He was at the same time liked, loved, hated, and respected. As a quarterback, his superb instincts and timing made him a winner, and took the Redskins to previously unscaled heights. But his outspoken manner and a yen for recognition did not sit well with the man who guided the early part of his career, Redskins head coach George Allen. Allen's scheme featured veterans, and with Billy Kilmer and Sonny Jurgensen on board, Theismann was left at the dock.
It was really a question of me trying to get the attention of George Allen and saying, please, just give me a chance. All I want is a chance. And then if I don't meet up to the standards that I think I can play at, ship me out, get rid of me, do what you want. But I never could quite get his attention.
Desperate for the playing time he thought he deserved, Theismann was willing to take any step necessary.
But I didn't like standing on the sidelines, and I'd return punts in college. When I went to Canada, I returned punts. I never had the great return or the great run, but I finally felt like I was actually contributing to the football team.
Theismann did ultimately earn the starting job, but remained on the outside. This was never more evident than in his first year as a starter. On an infamous Monday night against St. Louis in a torrential rain, the roof caved in when Theismann went down.
And Billy Kilmer went in and took the team over that series for me. They ended the series. Bill came back to the sidelines. I went up to George and I said, I'm going back in. He said, fine. And both of us ran out, and Billy got in the huddle and he looked at me and he went, out. And I have never really been more embarrassed in my life. It was my job. It was my position. And George said, geez, I'm sorry. I guess I, didn't tell Billy not to go in. And then I went back after that, but that moment, I think, is the lowest point in my career as a professional athlete. I felt like I was totally humiliated.
Theismann did emerge from the shadows to become a full-fledged NFL starter under the regime of new Redskins coach Jack Pardee. And it was under Pardee that Theismann began to flourish. He added polish to his flamboyant style and took his place among the league's top quarterbacks.
Well, the difference in those years was that Joe Theismann felt he could win the game himself each play. And it showed in his play. When he got to the Redskins and got under Joe Walton, who was the offensive coordinator, Joe Walton really started Joe Theismann on his way. He disciplined Joe Theismann to becoming a team quarterback. And when Joe Gibbs came, that just continued.
I think Joe was a fantastic competitor. I think he was a tremendous leader on the field by example, in that he paid a price. We had 3 interceptions in the first half against the Giants at our place. Had his 2 front teeth knocked out in the first half. I mean, totally knocked out right here, knocked off right across. I see the guy, and I'm looking at him, I said, man, if there's a time you take it to the house, it would be right now, you know what I mean? You're going to come back and fight another day. And Joe turned around in the second half and led us down the field for the final score. We won 15-14 or something. I think that tells you that, hey, a tremendous competitor, was not coming out of there, wasn't giving somebody else a chance to take his job.
Are you worried about him, or do you stay have time? Well, as I started to go, it looked like Joe, as I was going to Joe, when he put the guy who took a hard inside on him, I felt like I didn't have enough time to sit there and wait on it.
I tried to take the most pride in what I considered the art of quarterbacking. I didn't have the strongest arm, although I tried to think I did.
I'm throwing the hell out of the football. It's got juice on it, you know what I mean? The ball is humping.
I tried to just be as good a tactician as I could be.
Here we go. Give me a huddle. Come on, let's make a huddle. Don't wall around. Make it a class huddle. Let's go. Come on, get in here. Let's put it in. Near left, 50, gut on red. Ready? Liz! Rip! Yellow, 41, cut! Nice block, Joey! Nice block!
While never at a loss for words, Theismann commanded respect by displaying a willingness to do whatever necessary in order to win. And with their quarterback sacrificing his body, the Redskins ultimately made it to center stage.
We busted our We've worked harder than anybody to get here. Nobody can beat us in a team, and it's worth $70,000 and a big ring.
Despite a solid game, it is not touchdown passes which dominate Theismann's memory of the win.
I'd have to say that the one play that, to me, sort of personified an entire career for Joe Theismann happened in Super Bowl XVII. It wasn't a touchdown pass. It wasn't even an offensive play. It was when Kim Beaucamper tipped a ball up in the air on my left side. And it felt like time stopped. I really felt like I went into a time warp, and it became slow motion. And then all of a sudden, I managed to reach my hand out in between his and knock the ball away and make a defensive play, saving what would have been a reception for him and a touchdown, and really would have put us, I think, in a heck of a hole that we would not have been able to overcome. And I think, in my mind, that's the one that typifies what Joe Theismann's career was all about in football.
The beauty of Joe Theismann's career in football came from his sensational risk-taking. There was rarely a dull moment with time on the clock and Theismann on the field. But in an ironic twist of fate, it would be an unconventional play which would bring an end to his career.
I almost thank Lawrence Taylor because it was a blessing in disguise. It was time for Joe Theismann to leave the game. I know now that I could not have made that decision on my own. I would have been like Joe Namath, or John Unitas finished his career in San Diego, or O.J. Simpson in San Francisco. So what happened to Joe Theismann was not a tragedy, but really a blessing in disguise.
As prolific as Theismann's career was, it was tempered by the personal feelings he inspired. His rah-rah style was seen by some as showboating, yet he was the NFL's MVP in 1983. He began as a bench warmer and ended up a bellwether, completing over 2,000 passes for 25,000 yards. Whether loved or hated, shunned or embraced, Joe Theismann remains, above all, a winner. In 1983, the Redskins were again in championship form, as evidenced by their fourth quarter comeback from a 15-point deficit Week 5. Following touchdowns by Charlie Brown and Joe Washington, Theismann and company moved to within 5 yards of capturing the victory.
From the 6-yard line, Theismann with a straight drop. Looking into the end zone, throws it over the middle to Washington. Touchdown, Joe Washington!
After biting back at the silver and black, the Redskins were ready for another dogfight. But when they marched into Dallas to battle for first place in their division, the Cowboys just rolled over and played dead. Washington's defense stopped the Dallas running game short, and passing proved equally as futile, thanks to the Redskins' heads-up play. Washington's offense, however, showcased a balanced attack with touchdowns by 4 different players, including Clint Didier and Art Monk.
Theismann's going to pass. He's going to dash out here. Going deep. He's got Art Monk at the 5. Touchdown, Washington Redskins. The Cowboys all looking down there picking at artificial grass. He wasn't my man, no.
With a 31-10 win, the Redskins stood alone atop the NFC East. This team's continued success was a result of the talent and determination of its players and the support of the fans who went hog wild over their team. And why not? After finishing with the best record in pro football for the 2nd straight year, Washington blew away the Rams 51-7 in the first round of the playoffs. With a 24-21 win over the 49ers, the Redskins again were NFC champions. The high caliber of football this team displayed throughout the 80s was epitomized by the play of wide receiver Art Monk, who took catching the ball to new heights in Washington.
3rd down and 5, long 5. Back is Theismann, straight drop, steps up, fires it down the far side. He's got it complete to Monk. There's the record at the 30. He's down to the 20, inside the 20, and out of bounds at the 17. Art Monk has just broken the National Football League record for receptions in a single season. The crowd is on its feet.
They should be. What a great record to break.
For 14 seasons, Monk thrilled Redskins fans as he continued year after year to make his job look easy. And in 1992, number 81 became the NFL's all-time leading pass receiver.
Monk needs one. Ripping his back, looking for Monk on the out pattern. He's got it at the 27, out of bounds at the 23. Art Monk is now number 1, the most prolific pass receiver in the National Football League's history.
After 1983, the Redskins continued their winning ways with 10 or more victories in each of the next 4 seasons. And in 1987, not only did Joe Gibbs become the winningest coach in team history, Washington returned once again to the NFL's greatest game. On their way to sunny San Diego, however, the Redskins had to overcome a 14-point deficit in their weather.
Hurry, Didier at the 4, touchdown, Washington Redskins.
At halftime, the game was tied. And then, in the 3rd quarter, a punt return gave Washington all the points it would need.
Here's the kick. It's a good one. Green driven back to midfield on the far side. He's got the ball up to the 45, far side 40, a seam to the 35, vaults a man to the 30, breaks it to the near side 25, watch out to the 20, near side, he's gone, touchdown, Washington Redskins. Darrell Green returns the punt 50 yards.
The 21-17 win put the Redskins right where they wanted to be, at home, for the NFC Championship. In front of a packed house, the Redskins took care of the last roadblock standing in their way.
Back is Williams, looking right, fires it into the end zone, touchdown, Washington Redskins. 1 down to the Super Bowl. Defense, 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 defense. 4th down and 4. Wilson takes the snap, looking left, throws it into the end zone, batted away, incomplete. Redskins are going to the Super Bowl. The Washington Redskins for the National Football Conference champions. They are going to San Diego.
The Redskins had made it to their 3rd Super Bowl in 6 years and were ready to capture another NFL crown. The Broncos took an early 10-0 lead, but Washington countered with an offensive explosion never before seen in a Super Bowl.
Play action fake, Williams going up top, got Sanders on the fly at midfield, he's gone unless they can catch him. Touchdown, Washington Redskins.
Doug Williams threw for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns, earning Most Valuable Player honors, as the Redskins seemed to score at will in the 2nd quarter and set no less than 20 new Super Bowl records.
Doug Williams is back, lobs it into the end zone, he's got Didier, touchdown, Washington Redskins. Holy cow! Holy cow!
Denver never recovered, and a final Redskins touchdown sealed the victory.
Touchdown, Washington Redskins.
By winning 42-10, the Redskins had climbed to the pinnacle of professional football and returned home to a hero's welcome. Over 650,000 fans took part in the salute to their super team. And at a reception at the White House, President Ronald Reagan honored the world champions.
The Redskins didn't simply enter the history books Sunday night. They rewrote them. Fellas, what else is there to say but hail to the Redskins?
"25 years had passed since the Redskins' greatest comeback against Dallas. But in 1990, when Joe Gibbs found his team facing circumstances just as bleak, the Redskins came up with another miracle. In 1965, Sonny Jurgensen had worked the magic. This time, Jeff Rutledge was the one who made a 21-point deficit disappear. Rutledge passed for 363 second-half yards, and with time running out, ran in the tying score himself.
Rutledge on the draw, back up to the 5, he's diving, touchdown, Washington Redskins! Well, unbelievable!
Chip Lohmiller provided the game-winning points in overtime.
Snaps a little low, Rutledge has got the hold, the kick's up, it's long enough, it's good. Redskins have beaten the Detroit Lions with one of the most dramatic comebacks we've ever seen.
Joe Gibbs' teams had already provided great comebacks, an endless number of All-Pros, repeated trips to the playoffs, and 2 Super Bowl victories. But in 1991, his team dominated the game like never before. The 1991 Redskins started off with 11 straight victories, allowed only 9 sacks all season, sent 8 players to the Pro Bowl, and won the most games in franchise history. The Redskins began the playoffs against Atlanta, and Washington's Capitol defense reigned all over the Falcons. The Hogs were right at home in the mud and opened up huge holes for the running game.
Broad, Urbans over to the left side, breaks the tackle at the 10, he's to the 5, diving in, running in, touchdown, Washington Redskins.
The Redskins were on the march to Minneapolis.
The seat cushions all going out on the field, and they're showering the field with them.
Ain't no tomorrow. This is it. This is bigger than the Super Bowl. Because if you lose today, you don't go.
The Lions were no match for Washington, and the Redskins won easily, 41-10. The defense turned the Bills' no-huddle offense into no offense at all, while the NFC's highest-scoring team had no trouble adding up the points.
Back to pass on a quick shot. Throws it in the near flat to Biner at the 5. Dives for the corner. Touchdown, Washington Redskins.
This Redskins team had led from September to the Super Bowl and never strayed off course. With a final score 37-24, the 1991 Redskins had captured another NFL crown, and in doing so, paid tribute to the great teams and great men who had come before them, by proving that the winning tradition of the Washington Redskins will always continue.